It's the final video of 2024. One last look at the models for our storm that we're looking at heading into the weekend, the potential impacts, and what it may mean for you. But before we go, I want to leave you with one last thing as we round out 2024. A lot of you honestly have just been coming back and back again. Some of you have been here since the beginning, and we're talking about just about a year ago, I started putting these videos on YouTube. I got out of the television industry now many, many years ago. And that choice was a hard one to make at that point in my life, but it's a choice that I don't regret because I was able to spend more time with my family and do some other things that I wanted to do in my life. And I guess it's just the time of year where I'm looking back going, what am I thankful for? Where are things at right now? And, these types of videos right here, this was something that I've always had a passion for. And now we've developed this community here on YouTube looking at these types of things almost on a daily basis, sometimes a couple times a day, sometimes a little bit longer. If it's quiet, I know I've not done the videos as much, but it's been pretty active lately. So I've been cranking these out a couple times a day, and I do appreciate you guys who have come back multiple times and you've supported the channel. And if you're on the outside looking in, you're just seeing these videos show up in your feed as you're browsing YouTube, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. I think that's the longest talk I've ever done on YouTube, and there are some trolls out there, their gaskets are blowing now, just get to the weather. We're going to go through what I'm looking at tonight, but thank you again for coming by. Here's the upper level pattern that is going to really shift as we head into the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. I'm going to back it up to where we are now. So this is the newest data. The height anomalies clearly much lower across the east. These are anomalous heights. In other words, the atmosphere is thin because of all of that cold air that's going to be dropping south right over the Great Lakes into the east. And now you're watching for storms that form along the southern side of it. We're going to look really quickly. This is going to be super fast at the three global models. I'm not going to dive into every section of the country, every town, every city. This is going to be a national look, and we're going to take the models out. And we're mostly looking at what's going to be happening with our storm that moves through the Central Plains and to the East Coast as we head into the weekend. Right now, as we head into the first day of the new year, we're starting off wet across the Northeast and across the Pacific Northwest with rain and snow here into the Cascades. That rain and snow also continues across the Northeast with some lake effect snow starting to pick up. It's going to be windy here too as well as our low pressure area departs. The rain and snow continues across the west. Snow moves even further inland into parts of Idaho, Montana, into Wyoming, and finally we'll even get some snow into the mountains of Colorado too. High pressure building into the east. We've got this weak system that will bring a stripe of snow as we head into Wednesday night and Thursday. It starts off across parts of Nebraska, then eventually move into parts of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana. Dusting, maybe an inch or so as we head into early Friday, and then we've got the lake effect that's going here too. It's going to just continue to pound areas downwind of the Great Lakes. This is our big winter storm. That energy just now moving ashore as we head into Friday. And then into Friday afternoon, rain and snow gets heavy here across the Pacific Northwest. And then the snow starts to pick up as our reinforcing shot of cold air moves in through the Great Lakes and the Appalachians. That moves off to the east. It may bring a few flurries into D.C., into the Delmarva, maybe. It's not a huge deal. And look at these isobars, how packed they are here up against the mountain as that cold Arctic air gets squeezed against the Canadian Rockies as it starts to slide to the south. Our piece of energy is likely also going to move right along that boundary, and that cold, dense Arctic air is going to get reinforced, and at the surface we have low pressure developing on the east side of the mountains, warm air surging to the north of that. There could also be some severe weather on this side of our storm as it pulls out into the plains. So on Sunday, things start to get active with the rain, sleet, freezing rain, and snow at this point. High pressure is one of the ingredients here. If it wasn't so strong, you'd just get a low that moves likely in this direction. It's probably would be either rain or snow, but because you've got this really complicated setup with this warm air overriding the cold air that's really dense at the surface, I think we're going to be dealing with sleet and freezing rain, and that would put the ice into places like Kansas City, over to St. Louis, maybe sleet, possibly all snow. And with this track, it keeps all of the snow south of the Great Lakes. It puts the heavy snow and the heavy sleet, freezing rain right along the Ohio River and then into D.C. So this is a D.C. storm. You've got a strong area of low pressure to the northeast of Maine. I'm just saying right now, my mind is starting to lean heavily that this thing is not going to go northeast because of the low that's here. It's going to likely keep it suppressed to the south. That means snow into the mid-Atlantic, and then it moves out to sea. That's the European. Here's a quick look at the GFS. I want to show you some consensus here. We're not going to dig into all of those details before our winter storm, but here it is on Sunday. Pretty similar, right? Snow across parts of Kansas. It's a little bit further to the south, though, and it's colder. That's why you've got ice now into northern parts of Arkansas. parts of Tennessee into Kentucky. It also pushes the snow a little bit further to the south too, but it keeps it cold enough for some sleet and freezing rain into places like North Georgia, the upstate of South Carolina, the Piedmont of North Carolina. It puts the snow here. And look, it almost suppresses the snow out of D.C. and Baltimore and puts it into North Carolina and Virginia. There's your low. It's suppressing your storm to the south and pushing it out to sea. And just for kicks, here's the closer look at the GFS. You can see how much further to the south it is with that ice. I mean, we've almost got freezing rain here. We kind of do here into parts of northern Alabama, North Mississippi, as we head into Sunday on the GFS. Just for comparison, the European, it's a little bit warmer during this time frame. You can see we're mostly rain across a lot of Tennessee in these same areas. So there are fine-tuning details that are going to come. This will go back and forth. I promise you that. But look, we are seeing a storm on all the big models. Take a look. This is the Canadian, just for example. Someone was asking me, why do we use the European model? I mean, I look at all data. The Canadian model is also a decent model to look at too. And just for comparison, look, they all three, the big global models have your winter storm moving through the Central Plains, and then it has the low northeast of Maine suppressing your storm to the south, not letting it come up the northeast coast. We're going to likely see this change, and that's, again, one of the reasons I look at things like the Ensemble outlook. Because if you just look at the European, you've got this stripe of heavy snow moving through. It's not showing you the outliers, which some of them are much further to the south. This is the probability of seeing at least 1 inch of snow over the next week. This is the probability of seeing more than 6 inches of snow in that same time frame. So you can see how the confidence is starting to grow here in this region. That's on the European ensembles. The GFS ensembles, again, a little bit further to the south on the shift of that core area of snow. And that extends back to the west across parts of Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa too. And while it's not much, the fact that we're starting to see hints at more than 12 inches of snow showing up, at least in the ensembles, is interesting. One thing I'm noticing on the ensemble panels too, there's one, there's another. You're getting this east to west snow pattern setting up. There's another one here. You're starting to see some consensus, but you still have a few outliers like this one, right, with hardly anything. And that's why you go back to the mean and you look at this right here. So if you look at the snow totals for all members, you get something that looks more like this. Now, this is more of a median versus your deterministic forecasting. So these numbers are probably muted a little bit, or they could be wild, right? So you've got a few outliers with some winter precipitation down into the south. So it's at least showing up if you're hoping for snow, but you can kind of see that core area that's starting to develop, at least the chance of seeing that snow. Okay, that's all I got for now. Happy New Year. See you next time.